Okay guys, so we're going to start using FancyBox in our grid layout that we just created. Right now what I want is to have my header clean, my navigation clean, and basically add 9 images and use FancyBox in order to do that. Now I went already to the website and I put the script source for the jQuery. Remember, these are jQuery plugins, so if you don't put the jQuery first, it won't work. That means that if I put first the script for that plugin before the script for the jQuery, it won't work. It needs to be after jQuery's script source. Basically this way. So jQuery script source, and the style sheet and plugin for FancyBox. We comment these things out with Control and slash if you're on Windows, and if you're on a Mac, Command and slash. Okay, so first of all, you will need 10 images, and you need 2 versions of those images. You need a big image and a small image. I already created an image folder inside my class 10 project. First, I have this big folder with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and also I have this small folder with 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So basically a small version of that image, so I can use it as a thumbnail, and a big version of that image so I can show it whenever they click on that thumbnail. So let's start working. First, let's dump the way they show us to do. So if you go to, you create a link, and inside that link you're gonna create an image. So I have an image inside my link. Okay, let's check out the documentation for FancyBox. Basically what you have is this. Same thing we have here. We need to use the data FancyBox attribute in order to understand that, oh, this link you want to use it as a part of the gallery. Sure, let's do it. So you can give it a group name. You can call it gallery. You can call it, in this case, this one is my images are about mecha or robot. Why? Because I like them. And the reference here is the important part. Usually here in the hyperlink reference, this one we use it to launch us into different pages, right? Into different website or into a different web page within our website. But in this case, we're going to make it launch into the big picture that we want to show. So let's go and grab the, okay, so it's to grab that first picture from the big folder. I have to go to my image folder. Why? Because if you guys see, everything is inside my class 10 folder. So here's my HTML, the one that I'm writing inside of, and right next to it is the image. So image, go inside image, then go inside big, and then grab one.jpg. Cool. Now that is where it's going to take us whenever we click on it. But what we want to display before they click on it is the small version of that page. So we're going to do the same thing within the image tag in the source attribute. we're going to add this path, this value. So go to the image, instead of big, go to the small folder and grab the one JPEG. Now guys, let me check really quickly the documentation, because I want to add a caption to each photo. So if you want to add a caption, you just use data FancyBox and data caption. Okay, that's not that hard. So here, data FancyBox mecha, so all of these part of the mecha group, and then use data caption. Basically, whenever we make our image big, we're going to tell it robot number 1. We can take this one out. We already have what we want. You can put this just as a description of the image. Now we're going to repeat this 1, 2, 3, 9 times. I think this is 9 times. 3, 6, 9, 10. Probably make one more, but okay, we can start working from here. I'm just going to add all my images. So if you want to make this a little bit faster, if you press Ctrl D, Mac Command D, then you select that word. If you press it again, Ctrl D, then you select it again. So I just need to know what image I'm going to add. This is a PNG, so to that PNG, and instead of robot 1, I just selected, then press Ctrl D. This time it's going to be robot 2. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the rest of my HTML elements, so I can add the rest of my photos. 3.png, and instead of robot number 1, I'm going to use robot number 3. Okay, for the 4th image is for JPEG. Instead of robot number 1, it's going to be robot number 4. So now that I have linked all my images, it should be revealed inside my jQuery. And yeah, now right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. So whenever you click on one, it's going to be displayed in this little light box. You can even press play and it will create this slideshow, and it's going to go through all your images. And the robot number 3, see, that's the data caption. This is that's the little text that comes below your images. You can even see, you can pause it and you can see through gallery this way, and that's pretty cool. That's how you use a plugin. Now I just show all of them and they look really ugly right here. I could just start changing the side of each one of them and then start to create a layout, but I think the best way right now for me to start ordering my images is through a grid, right? We create a grid of images so they look all nice and cozy inside my main tag. Now you have to start thinking about the layout before you start saying, okay, let's code. A few hours of planning will save you weeks of coding, and that's something that I always tell myself when I'm start to do any project. So I want to be 3 columns, and let's see what happens with 2 rows. Okay, but in this case I want to create a div because I don't want to use my main as the base for my grid. Why? Because if I change my main, then I'm going to start changing, and check this out, I'm going to start changing this white box that I have, that is already part of my grid, right? So I don't want that. I want that main tag, that white box, this white box, to remain the same, and just I want to affect the content that is inside of it. I just want to affect the content that is inside of it. Sorry if you didn't see that. So I don't want to affect this this main tag, which is this little white box. I want to affect the elements that are inside of it. So I need to create a grid inside my main tag. Let's do that. So what's the best way to just create a box? It's just div. Div, your new best friend. So let's call this grid images. Now we're going to dump all our images inside that div. Right now nothing should happen. It's going to remain the same. Yep, as we can see, it's remained the same. But now what we're going to do is, on our style sheet, here's the grid for the first one. So we're going to create our second grid. How we call it? Grid images. Yep. So let's just see what happens if we press display grid. I said I wanted 3 columns, so we're not going to use template areas because it's just going to be a very simple grid. So we can use grid template columns. I'm sorry, grid template columns, and want to use 1FR, 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 and I'm going to have 3 columns. Although we have more elements that they can adapt in 3 columns, so I will have to start creating a bunch of rows, right? Because if I save it right now and I see it, it create 3 columns, the one in the middle, but because of the images are bigger than the columns, so they can fit inside those grid cells. The way that I can change that is to change the actual images. So I want to change the size of these images that are inside this link tag, the A tag, which are inside my div with the class grid images. How do I select all my images? It's very simple. First you go to the grid images div, right? Inside that div I want to grab all the A tags, all the links, and inside all the links I want to grab all the images tag. So in that way I can have all the images selected at once. And if I tell them to use a width of 100%, then I'm trying to basically be the size of whatever it's containing it's containing that image. So if I go to my site, see, now all my images are contained within those grid cells. I have 3 columns, but as you see, it's creating like 3 different rows to display all my images, and I want to have them a more fluid type of layout. I don't want to see this white space between my images. It doesn't look right. I mean, right now it doesn't look that bad, and you can click it and you can see the plugin still working, but what if we create 3 divs? Those will be my columns, and inside those 3 divs are going to start adding my images. I think that should make a better layout. Let's see if that works. Okay, let's create a div, no class. I just want to use it as a container for my images. I can change how they're going to behave through the grid images class. So I want these three first images inside this div. I want the other three inside my second div, and I'm going to grab these last three images inside my third div. So now I have three divs inside my grid images div, and they are all inside my main tag. Let's see how that changed my website. See, now each one of my images each one of my divs are treated like a column. And for example, this is my div number 1 with the 3 images that I put inside that div. This is my div number 2 with the other 3 images, and this is my div number 3 with the remaining 3 images that I added. It looks much better than that, but it's still there's some space between them, and actually I filled them a little bit too close to each other, and probably the size I wouldn't make it my grid a little bit smaller so they can live within that white space, which is my main tag. Okay, so if you go, for example, in grid images, it already knows that it's just one row, but if I want to have that space between my images, so I need to create a gap, right? So grid row gap, I'm going to tell it to be 10 pixels, and also a grid column gap, and I want to be 10 pixels too. Also, I want to have some space between my grid of images and that white container, which is my main tag. So I'm going to add some padding, and probably I'm going to change the whole width of my grid of images. So if I change the width, probably I want 70%. I'm going to see how that looks like in a moment. And also I want to change, I want to add a padding, and I want to center it. So let's get margin. I don't want any margin, I just want it to be centered. And let's add a padding of probably, I don't know, 40 pixels. And let's see how that looks like. Looks much better. It looks contained within my main tag. By the way, I lose my header, my navigation, and my footer. Why? Because my grid image is so big to start taking all the space of my other grid. So if I want to see this layout that I already created, I will have to make my first grid, the one that contains everything, including the second grid, the grid images. I need to make my first grid bigger so it can contain all of it. 2000 is too much, maybe 2 times the viewport height. And if I make 2 times the viewport height, and even I have some space, maybe I will make it a little bit bigger, but now I have some space for all my images, and I can see my header, my navigation, and also my footer. But again, too small, so probably I will give it a 30% more, and there it looks perfect. That's it, that's all I wanted. I like the space. Maybe I will make the space a little bit bigger so it matches, because remember, we don't have rows, so it was a mistake from me to actually add the grid row gap, because there's no row, so it cannot You cannot put some gap between each row because it's only one row. Like in this row, there are 3 columns, and in these columns we have a 10 pixel gap. So what we can do is to tell each one of these pictures to have a 10 pixel space on the bottom between each other, so it can look of the same size as the gap that I gave to the column. So if I go to all my images and I tell it margin bottom of 10 pixels, the same amount of pixels we use on the grid column gap. Now that should give me the same space between my columns and the same space between the images that I have in those columns. So see, now it looks like they were like basically fitting themselves between each other, more like they have it on Pinterest. I think this is a better result that we had on the beginning. And then as we can see, our plugin is still working. You can display all the images, and I think we're good for now. This is the end of this tutorial, and please guys, if you have any doubts, if you have any problems, I'm always on Teams and on my email, so don't hesitate to contact me. Okay, cool. See you guys tomorrow, because tomorrow is Thursday and we have class. Ciao.